What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Progress Always podcast. And I've got the honor and the pleasure of sitting down with Zac Palmer today, the sales and persuasion strategist. And I've had a number of individuals that were at Mycal's dinner on the show prior to this call. And Nico really helped me tease it out because there was a handful of folks that were familiar faces from Once Upon a Time and a cast of new characters as well. And still sitting across the table and next to folks, it was like, man, where do I know these new faces from? And Nico really helped me tap into it. And it's the frequency of the room that created that familiarity, even though we're meeting for the very first time. So it's an honor and a pleasure to have you and have this conversation, man. But we spoke not too long ago prior to your vacation and really got into the origins of Zac Palmer and rubbing elbows with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins and Mastermind and all those other really incredible rooms that you've been in. And that's a lot of what we coach at Next Level is getting yourself in the right room, not necessarily from a transactional perspective, but intentionally, consciously putting yourself in a position where you're not the smartest in the room. And you're able to glean knowledge and wisdom from everyone else in that room with you. So rewinding the tape, where does that seeking come from in Zac?
Where it comes from and then the why has had and is like the biggest evolution, I think, right? I mean, in the beginning, it's a lot self-serving, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. You're trying to figure shit out in business. A bit about my story. I took over a company when I was 19 years old, and it's like I had no formal business schooling, no education, no mentorships. It was just I saw people doing stuff and things, and I modeled those things and realized really quickly a lot of what was going to work and what wasn't. And as a byproduct of business growth, for most of us, it starts out in like a networking environment, and you latch on to those few people that are the high performers, and some of them, will take you under their wing and start to mentor you and coach and teach. And I think that starts to evolve a mindset of realizing that, the best place to learn is not by paying the dumb tax of figuring everything out on your own. The best place to learn is go meet the people that have already done the thing that you're trying to accomplish, learn what they do, and then figure out a way to make it yours and to evolve a lot more organically. So what I meant by self-serving in the beginning is a lot of it, obviously in many cases when we're building a new business, you're in a bit of a place of scarcity. I mean, revenue's not low when you're not connecting with new clients, and you're doing it because you have to. But as time goes on, it shifts from a place of need to service, and also ultimately growth. Proximity is power, and the people you surround yourself with are, it's trite, but it's true. I mean, it's like the whole adage of the top 5 people are the people that you spend time with, or the people you're most likely to become. I'm very conscientious of who I put in my inner circle, because I'm like, I'm going to become an extension of them on some level, and them me too. So, it started from scarcity, moved to desire to serve, and then it's always been founded in growth. But the why behind the growth shifted a lot. Like, when you have the opportunity to sit with some of these incredibly successful and brilliant people, there's 2 things that come from it. One, you learn. Like, they are, absolute authorities in each of their individual spaces and lanes. 2, you witness how effective they are at staying in their lanes. And then 3, I think the most humbling aspect was you also realize that they're just human. And it's so easy to start putting people on a pedestal and feel like you can never accomplish things they can accomplish. But if they've been there and they've done that, you can too. It really comes down to what are you willing to sacrifice? And I don't think that's the question that people ask enough of, is like, everybody, maybe not everybody, but entrepreneurs think like, oh, I want to build $100 million business. Do you? Do you really know what it's going to take? I mean, the amount of sacrifice and work and effort and sleepless nights and tears and bloodshed and all the stuff that you're going to have to put into it. So it's an evolution of things. And I mean, I think foundationally it's constant never ending improvement. And I know I can't do it on my own.
Yeah. Wow. Where did you, God, how do I want to ask this question? Where did you gain the appreciation for the opportunity that's stands before you, because there's a lot of people that end up in those rooms and waste it.
Yeah.
You know, where did you gain that appreciation for, like, the genuine connection piece, but at the same time, how do I leverage this opportunity as well?
You
Because
know,
I feel like
that's a great question.
we talk about those things like they're mutually exclusive.
Mhm.
Like, if I'm in this room to gain a competitive advantage, make more money, whatever, all of a sudden we talk about that initiative as something that is transactional, versus the way we talk about something that is truly deep and relational, that doesn't have a necessarily tangible outcome. And in the circles that we run in, those two things converge
Mhm.
quite often. And it's that service forward mentality that everybody that was sitting at that table that night at Mycal Hunter's dinner all had.
Yeah, 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 100%. It's interesting where it came from was, and it takes me back to, like, again, initial networking days, like whether it's your local BNI group or private networking group, whatever. And you start to realize the power of being in that room. But then, or at least if you do recognize it, you start to wonder how you can grow it. Because I think, as entrepreneurs, we probably all said this at some point, if not multiple points in the journey. It feels lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an element that is refreshing to be around other people that are on that same journey, because you can feel so isolated. But where the biggest moments of growth happen for me is when I took a step back and made, in most cases, massive investments, and to your point, with no real tangible outcome
Mm-hmm.
in what otherwise could be simply defined as an education, and immersed myself in an environment with other brilliant people for 2, 3, 5, 7 days at a time. And I'm a full believer in the power of immersion. Get
Yeah.
out of your normal environment, your office, I mean, anything that's conditioned, and put yourself somewhere where you're uncomfortable, because
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to be present. And I'm an extrovert. I'm a talker. I love people. And the hardest thing that I had to do was exercise silence in that room.
Mm.
Just shut up and listen. So
Yeah.
my entire focus, and this is weird for me. I mean, I could think back to a mastermind where I'm in a room with Dean and Alex Hermosi and Stu McLaren and Dan Martell, and for 3 days it was just drinking from a fire hose. And these dudes are like, they're incredible humans too. Is the other part that was so refreshing, is they're just cool dudes, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all totally different. But
Yeah.
I had to just sit there and shut up and just take notes. And that's all I was focused on doing, was absorb, 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 extract, extract, extract. We'd get to the end of the day and do a recap and go around and share what our biggest takeaway was, and then ask some poignant questions. And I knew that was my opportunity. So for me, it was having to become aware of what my natural tendencies are. And
Mm-hmm.
I dominate rooms, and I don't mean to do it. It's from a place of love and passion and enthusiasm, but it's very easy for me to take over. So
Okay.
being aware of the way that I show up conventionally was very important. Having that awareness to be able to take a step back and look, be like, dude, these guys have done a lot. You got something to learn here. Like,
Yep.
you can contribute, sure. And that was another thing is to keep in mind, is just because you're surrounded by giants doesn't mean you can't step into that same ring, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you still have wisdom to share too. But there's that dichotomy. So for me, it was exercising that need to step back, leverage the power of immersion, get in that new environment, get outside of my comfort zone. And ultimately, I think the biggest shift, if I had to go back to it, is shifting from the place of scarcity to abundance, which is one of these conversations that we've all heard, and it sounds so easy superficially, but actually exercising that muscle and
Mm-hmm.
leading into an abundance mindset is a whole nother world practice exercise in and of itself. Uh, and I think fundamentally part of what that comes down to is surrender. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we get so focused on control, but the reality is we don't control shit that happens in our lives. So acknowledge that,
Yeah.
and try and drop that guard, the more things can flow through us and to us.
Mm-hmm. The uh my buddy Logan Gelbrick, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. He
Mm.
owns Deuce Gym out in Venice.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredibly dope soul, totally fits in that room where we met.
Yeah.
And I had him on the podcast years ago in the infancy of this whole journey for me. And he talked about not giving away your power.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're standing in that room of giants, you said something that really jumped out at me. You can contribute, but knowing when to, right? And there's this flex, which I would categorically define as giving away your power either which way, where you overcompensate and try to contribute too much and prove to everyone in the room that you're over your skis.
Yep.
Or you go sit in the corner and don't contribute at all or very little and walk out of that experience on nobody's radar.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So where's the sweet spot where you're not letting your ego lead the way? Because to do nothing and not contribute at all, that's the overprotection of the ego. We don't want to look bad, right? And then there's the overcompensation and trying to contribute too damn much
Mm-hmm.
above your pay grade.
Mm-hmm.
That is also ego driven. So where's the sweet spot where it's like, oh, this is my lane. This is how I can add value and not compromise my integrity.
Yeah, I love that question. I wish I had like a perfect, concise answer, but I think the reality
We got an
is,
hour, bro. Go for it.
I mean, I think the reality is, and this is something that I think we all know intuitively, but not enough people do. It's like, I mean, you'll be able to relate to what I'm about to say, Mycal, in the fitness industry, right? Like one thing I used to tell my clients all the time is our bodies are always trying to tell us a story. It's just most people aren't listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same can be said, should be said, must be said for gut intuition. You know, we all have this incredible gift, call it God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want, that is constantly driving messages through us. It's sending us signals. Sometimes they're flagrant, and in many cases they're not. But if you're not listening to your gut intuition and acting from a place of service, then there's a good chance you're trying to prove something. So I think part of it is the why. If I'm about to say something, it's asking yourself really quickly, consciously or unconsciously, why am I about to ask this question? Why am I about to contribute to this conversation? Is it from a place of needing to prove how brilliant I am, which I used to do that a lot. And I hate to say it, but I used to do that a lot because I had a, frankly, what it comes back to is childhood traumas and the patterns that I adopted and things that I hadn't grown through. And I figured a lot of this shit out just in the last few years. I mean, it's crazy. Like to me, it feels crazy, but it all happens at the right time.
Right.
But why am I doing this? Am I seeking to understand? Am I trying to? Is it just a desire to learn, or do I have a perspective that I can genuinely contribute to either help somebody else that's not quite grasping the concept, or to maybe even further enhance what they're already sharing? And if you're not checking one of those boxes metaphorically, then I think there's a good chance that you're just trying to feed the ego. And those are some of the filters that I would run it through. Like, why am I doing this? And a lot of that time, just in that pause, just taking that moment to pause where you feel like you have to say something, you'll realize that it wasn't anything that was necessary to say.
Yeah. The tactical pause.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if we all did that, so many relationships would be saved.
Dude. It's so funny because relationships have been my number one focus, more my intimate relationship and parenting, but I mean, overall relationships, like taking that step outside of business. And there's this concept. I don't remember if it's Byron. I think it's Byron Katie that talks about this. And it was like getting hit upside the head with a brick.
Oh, tell me.
Because it's so freaking true. She talks about how anytime you're in a conversation, and if somebody is pointing out a fault, a flaw, maybe it's a criticism, a request, or whatever, most people's instinctive reaction is to defend. And the second you start to defend is the moment you go to war. And instead of defending, if we can practice getting in the habit of, again, saying one, thank you, and then two, seeking to understand, now you open a dialogue because there
Yep.
probably is truth to whatever they're saying, but you're damn well not going to hear it if you're
Mhm.
so busy defending what you're doing or why you're doing it or whatever else. And that's what creates these perpetual circles. It was like one of the hardest things for me. This is another, like, this is probably going to sound so ridiculous, but I'll never forget. I'm in Amsterdam. I'm at business mastery student with my buddy CV. He's like this world class hypnotherapist. I mean, he took me on a journey. I'll tell you that, and it was not
Okay.
just the coffee shops.
Yeah.
It was an
Absinthe
incredible.
is real.
Yeah, but I mean, for real though, like he. But I remember him. We're sitting there at breakfast one day, and he looks over and he's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Pattern interrupt, right? He's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Every time I try to give you a compliment, you have to turn around and give me a compliment." I'm like, "I don't know." He goes, "Well, what's behind that?" And we dove into it a little bit, and he's like, "Dude, I want you to do this. I want you to practice just this. Just say thank you. When somebody gives you a
Mhm.
compliment, you don't have to give them something back. Just
Right.
receive it. You're not
Mhm.
receiving anything. And when you don't receive that simple thank you, you're taking it away from me.
Mhm.
That's not fair. That's bullshit." And I'm like, "Whoa, poignant." But main point, ever since then, it was like major transformation, mindset set shift. I started saying thank you. And then I realized that doesn't just apply to when somebody gives you a compliment, it
Mhm.
also applies to when somebody gives you a criticism.
Yeah.
And now you start to create the opportunity to have a real, genuine conversation.
Mhm.
Powerful stuff.
Dude, the dialogue for understanding is contentious. It's challenging because not because it's inherently hard or that it's riddled with friction. It's so unusual, right? It's so unfamiliar. That's where the discomfort comes from.
Yeah.
I'm convinced because when you genuinely approach a conversation with that intent to understand, there is no nobler intent. And still it's like, God, why is my stomach in knots right now? Why am I like trying to massage my words and like navigate my way to the truth? Because it's unfamiliar and you're asking this person on the other side to engage with you, hopefully with the similar intent.
Mhm.
And more often than not, one of you defaults to defense.
Mhm. Almost every
so
time. Yeah.
so you're how do we just lean on faith and just, you know what, how they react is not my responsibility? Is that rational and true, or is it
And EQ.
very,
You know,
very highfalutin?
yeah, dude. I mean, yes. And then, it's easy for me to say. And then at the same time, am I perfect? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, do I screw this up probably every single day? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but all change starts with awareness.
Yep.
So first, we got to become aware of the problem before we can actually
Mm-hmm.
start to resolve it. And then we can start to practice and execute. And what's even more powerful too is, again, we try to do this stuff alone. And this might sound so ridiculous, but we try to do this stuff alone.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead you were to go to your significant other, go to your boss, go to your friend, whatever, and say, "Hey, you know, I, I'm aware of this particular communication pattern that I have, and you're making it about you." And you're like, I, I really want to, I want to practice when you're sharing some kind of critical information with me, when you're frustrated with something I'm doing, unhappy, whatever. What I'm really focused on practicing is not getting defensive and instead getting curious and
Mm-hmm.
leading with the thank you. And now all of a sudden, that person knows and is aware of what you're trying to accomplish. And so, because you put the intention out versus
Yeah.
internalizing it, now all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you're more likely to show up that way when you have that conversation to begin with. And they probably won't even need to say anything. But you
Mm-hmm.
also create an invitation for them to say something in a healthy way. And they're more likely to respond in that way too.
Right.
So, sometimes it's about opening that door before you get to the situation that's most likely to be the trigger and like send you to frickin' the moon or whatever. I think that's a really, really important one. But
Hmm.
then there is EQ, like our emotional intelligence. We have to become more self aware, and it should not matter what the other person does. The only person we are in control of, and that's a fact, is ourselves.
Yep.
So, and the meaning we apply to any situation. So, regardless of how harsh they're being, if we can find and create the space to explore it with curiosity, it doesn't mean you're agreeing. I think this is the other thing is like people are
Hmm.
like, well, what about my ego? I got to protect myself. Yeah, but then you're going to war. You're protecting yourself.
Right.
It's just about being curious, and then you can decide what is true and what is not after the fact, and determine what is the most appropriate changes for you. But it creates a space where you're not hurt or where you're able to hear, and that person's feeling heard, and
Yeah.
that, dude, super super powerful place to be.
Well, dude, I am absolutely in love and infatuated with the word agreement because, to your point, I think you are like in the example of moving through this practice with your significant other. You first of all, you have to agree that it's okay to go through this process together, right? We are agreeing to play this game together, right? We are not agreeing on my way, your way, or any predetermined outcome. That's not what we're agreeing on. And I think that's where the major disconnect is. Because when people understand and you get buy in from your teams, your significant other, your spouse, your children, as to what we're actually agreeing to, and this is where words are so powerful. When everybody's on the same page as to what you're actually agreeing to,
Mm-hmm.
now you're able to play full out with each other.
Yeah.
But I think that what I witnessed, and I just had this with a client before. That's why we had to shift 30 minutes. Her and her founding partner have been operating in a way, just the two of them, for quite some time. And now the beast that is their business is too big for just the two of them. So they're introducing new energy, who have their own biases, who have their own ways of doing things and communicating, and da 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 da. And fast forward this conversation, what it came down to was you guys have been doing something together that was very synergistic and very building a lot of momentum. When you introduce this new energy, regardless of their skill set, they need to be able to move in rhythm with you guys. And this is where you get the wrong person in the right seat organization. If you're familiar with traction and EOS and all that good stuff, they have the skill set that we need, but they don't operate at our rhythm, right? And what I guided her to today was her and her partner need to establish a cultural standard for how things are going to be done. And beyond the resume, if somebody doesn't vibrate at that frequency, they're not for the team. And that's okay. But you need to identify that immediately. My partner and I, what we judge each other on is integrity, courage, and ownership. Did you do what you say you were going to do? And then it fell apart? Okay, we can fix that. Right? Did you do the hard thing? And then it fell apart? Okay. Did you take ownership in your role in this less than desirable outcome? Okay, cool. We can fix what's left. But sans those three things, if you don't check those three boxes, something's really fucked up. But we can agree that those are the first three boxes we're going to check before we get into how this thing fell apart and what needs to be fixed and da 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 da. We got to talk about those three things first, or at least we need to move through those three things first, and getting people, yourself included, to buy into what it is exactly that you're agreeing to. Now you can really play the game. But I think most people are not on the same page as to what they actually agreed to.
agreed to, and then also willing to be held accountable to. I mean, and you're
Mm-hmm.
spot on. This is actually one of the first things. Like if I'm consulting for a company and helping
Mm-hmm.
them build out a sales team, one of the first questions I have ask is, what is I, I ask what is your culture, and then I ask what is your defined culture. Like,
Mm.
how do you define your values? How do you define what that value means, like integrity in terms of the way that we show up? And do you even have that for individual teams as well as the organization? So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with a sales team, I'm going to come in, and that's one of the first things that I work with them to create is what is our value system founded in service that we can create and all agree upon, as long as it's in alignment with the company as a whole, of course. So
Yep.
we have to have that continuity and synergy,
Yeah.
so that we have a standard operating memorandum, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're dead on. Like, you're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's why some people will work and some other people won't. So I love that you brought that up, because I don't think that's a conversation that's had enough, and it's something that's very easy to overlook, but when implemented properly, can have a
Mm-hmm.
massive impact on any organization or team.
It in the moment, because let's be honest, most of our new hires or additions to the organization, they're coming aboard to fill a need,
Mhm,
right? There's a leak in the boat,
mhm, mhm.
and in if we're not patient enough with that filter, the leak actually gets bigger.
Mm.
Right now, we can just, use some buckets and get that water out of the boat, but if you put the wrong person in that seat, now you're ignoring it.
Dude, same outcome, slightly different context. Going back to the relationship side of things, what do most people do when they're upset with their spouse about something? Like, maybe it's your husband didn't put the dishes away, or forgot to take the trash out, or is tuning
Mhm.
you out. When you get home from work, or like what? I'm not to pick on the dudes, but like those are the easy things that come to mind, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, but what do most people do? Do they talk about it? No, they internalize it. And
Mhm.
what happens when you tend to bottle up all these things is you're now feeding the monster, and
Yep.
that monster starts to grow. And the
Mhm.
irony is the best time to kill the monster is when it's small. And the only way to kill the monster when it's small is to have the conversation when it's a little thing before it starts to stack and grow and compound into this big freaking thing that now is out of control, that
Yep.
destroys your relationship or your
Mhm.
business.
Right.
So, like, learning, getting comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations sooner than later, all of a sudden they're not that uncomfortable. There's something fun because you're helping each other grow. But then you also got to be willing to hold yourself and allow the other people to hold you accountable to those things and be like, dude, did you
Yep.
show up in integrity in this conversation or in this particular
Mhm.
situation? That's not how we do things, remember?
Right.
Like, what are we going to do to make sure we shift this next time? And if there's
Mhm.
a pattern where they're continually breaking that value, they're not a good fit,
Right.
to your point earlier. So kill the monster while it's small. That's another huge piece of this.
When you decide to step out there and create that expectation of those in your circle, that this is how Zac is going to walk in this life and pursue the best version of this relationship. This is how you're going to go about it. And you don't get that buy-in. How is one to react to that?
Like, from
Like
the counterpart.
if it's somebody that you find a lot of value in,
Hmm.
I'm not even going as far as to say that they reciprocate that value,
Hmm.
but you hold this person in a high esteem, and you are stepping into a higher and better version of yourself, and you put it out, because a lot of like self advocacy is presenting and communicating your needs and expectations explicitly.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean you're dogmatic about it. That doesn't make
Right.
you an asshole in
Hmm.
setting that precedent. But a lot of people's reluctance to do these things is because it's met with some kind of friction, or it compromises the relationship in some way.
Mhm.
So how do we become okay with not being in control of that outcome, even if it means, even if it's in an attempt to serve the highest and best version of ourselves?
Mm. That's a powerful question. Um, I think there's a few pieces of this conversation. One, awareness. We know we can't control the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what they say or do, it's got to be okay. Like you said, you have to detach from the outcome and recognize that they get to live life their way. But just
Let's stop right there.
yeah,
No matter what they say or do, it has to be okay.
yeah,
How do you reconcile that shit?
a lot of inner work. Like, because honestly, I mean, a lot of these are concepts that I've only started. I mean, are you familiar with I don't remember whose scale it is, like different levels of learning. It's like, first thing we have to do is gain awareness. Then we can gain an intellectual understanding of
Mm-hmm.
something. Then it moves on to like understanding with the nervous system or something. To the point where it's conditioned. It's like athletes,
Mm-hmm.
best athletes in the world don't think, they just do. It's already
Right.
built into their body.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think a lot of it depends on your current level of evolution, like
Sure.
personal development,
Mm-hmm.
and you may not be at that stage where you can do that yet. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's still a conscious practice for me, but
Yep.
eventually does become something that's unconscious. But you also have to determine the why, the illustration, the value. Like, is this a need for you yet?
Uh-huh.
Is this the most important thing for you to focus on in your current evolution and development and personal growth?
Right.
Maybe
Uh-huh.
not. Um, but it's a really tricky one because that's the hardest part is we always want to be in control. Inherently, it's a human need that we're trying to meet at constant, and unfortunately, it's one of the most destructive of all the needs. So if we can leverage curiosity to find beauty in the other person's position, that's fantastic. And at the same time, it also might be a fork in the road where you are now evolving at a different rate than that friend or mentor, and it might be time to start spending less time with that particular relationship if it's become
Mm-hmm.
more of a anchor than a propeller.
Yeah. Okay. So no matter what they say or do, it's okay.
Detach from the outcome. All you
And
can do is learn. I mean, and
mhm.
you decide, is their answer something that's in alignment with my current value system? And if it's not, then you get to decide what the depth or breadth of that relationship is going to be from there forward.
So if we're looking at our circles of influence, those that are most influential are in the smallest circle, and then we just extrapolate that, the depth and breadth of those relationships, right, in subsequent rings, right?
Mhm.
You get to choose which layer these people get to interact with your universe.
Yeah, exactly. How
Okay.
much of your energy are they getting?
Hmm. Do you feel that it is a good practice or not good, but productive? Let's take the charge off of it. Is it productive when warranted? Should it be warranted to just simply ghost people? Like when it has become painfully obvious that we're at the point of no return. I'm growing, you're not. I'm going left, you're going right. Now it's obvious. Do is do I am I obligated to say that this relationship is over, or do I just stop picking up the phone?
Yes. No, but I mean, like, in all seriousness, though, I mean, because I was as you were talking and asking the question, I'm thinking through different scenarios, even like real life
Mhm.
scenarios with me right now, and I think there are the times where the relationship is going to kind of, I don't want to say dissolve, but
Mhm.
fizzle out more organically, and that's okay. However, there are the times where I think a conversation is required, and you'll know the difference if you trust your gut. Listen to your intuition. Is that person an integral part of your life where you have to make a replacement, like, quote unquote, find a replacement for a key role or position or whatever?
Mhm.
Maybe it's a friendship that you are just moving completely different directions. And I think from a place of integrity, it is important to be willing to have those hard conversations, because you can love the person, but not love them as a part of your life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Same with an intimate relationship. So I think from a place of respect, depending on the magnitude and the depth of that relationship, my personal belief system is we should have the fortitude to be able to have those kind of conversations and
Mm-hmm.
willingly, but from a place of love. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
because really it's a form of judgment, and the only person who gets to judge is upstairs.
Yeah.
But we do get to decide in the moment if they're in alignment with the direction
Mm-hmm.
we're moving. And I think that's two
Yeah.
different things too.
Sure.
So it's
Sure.
like, and actually that's a really great point. It's the same thing when we're having these hard conversations. Like, a lot of people, most people, they're like, if they try to address something difficult, what you'll hear is they rarely address the emotion. They'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like, and that word like is the good indication that they're about to not address an actual feeling. The
Oh,
thing
sure.
is,
Yeah.
we want to bring more feeling into conversation, but we need to do it accurately. And if
Yes.
you're like, I feel like you don't care about me, I feel like you don't listen, then you're putting words in my mouth. But if
Right.
you give a statement and you say, I feel unheard when I walk into the house and you don't give me your immediate attention and you continue to stare at the TV, now you're naming a specific action and the emotion that you are feeling. You're not projecting onto them, which is
Yep.
more likely to create defense. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
when I can tap the feeling and a specific circumstance that elicits that feeling,
Yep.
now people are going to be more receptive to that condition. So it's also how we address things that's equally as important as anything else.
Sure. But what you're to make that an active practice, what you're also requiring is to call it out when you see it.
Yep.
And
Kill the monster
to
monster while it's small.
yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely. And depending on how long a thing has been occurring, this is why it feels like somebody's pissing in your Cheerios.
Mhm.
Because I've been doing it, like, we've been in this rhythm for years. And now it bothers you,
Mhm.
right? And that's where that agreement is really important. I like to call it setting the table.
Mhm.
You know, like these are the guardrails with which I want to have this conversation.
Mhm.
This is the intent by which I'm going to say the things I'm going to say. So even if it comes out messy or ugly, let's get behind the intent, not necessarily the words yet.
Yeah, that's a big one too. Is the yeah, more often than not, the thing that you think is bothering you is
Mm-hmm.
not really the thing that's bothering you.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Like,
to your point, like,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a difference between I feel like and,
yeah,
to use the to reiterate the example, I feel unheard when.
yeah, yeah.
Like that's not the same thing. And it's really interesting, word codes, right?
Hmm.
When somebody says, when you ask somebody, what do you feel or what did you hear? And they respond with, I feel like, well, it's like, no, 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 no. Like, answer the question directly.
Hmm.
Right? What do you feel? Like, what is the feeling? And it's so funny. Like, we talk about this in the sphere of masculinity a lot, but I think it's really the human condition. We
Hmm.
are so consciously and subconsciously conditioned to suppress our emotions. And by suppress, I mean you do that long enough, you lose the ability to communicate your feelings accurately and articulately,
Yep.
right? And now you create this expectation of Zac is supposed to read my mind. He's supposed to know how I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
When you don't say hi when I walk in the door that it pisses me off. It's like, probably not. Because if I
Mhm.
did, that makes me an asshole. And two, like, that would imply that I want you to feel the way that you're feeling right now. I
Mhm.
want that response out of you, which couldn't be further from the truth. So, what are we actually talking about?
Yeah.
And that's a pattern interrupt as well. It's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
pause. What are we
And
actually talking about right now?
You know what's interesting too is you don't even have to like it, I think it's important to share what your intention is. Like, I want to start having these conversations if we're talking in the frame of your significant other or whatever.
Hmm.
But they don't, but they don't necessarily have to be willing or have the desire to do the same practice at the same time. They do need to be willing to support you. Otherwise, you've got probably a fairly significant problem in your relationship, or that's
That's
not the right
fair.
relationship. But they don't have to be willing to practice it at the same time. But they need to do support you in practicing it. And I think that's a really important
Oh,
distinction
I
because, like,
love that. Yeah,
yeah.
dive in on that a little more.
Well, I mean, I think it just comes back to, like, more often than not, we hope that they will be like, "Oh, dude, this sounds like a great idea. I would love to practice this too." But how often are we actually on the same page as our significant other? And more often than not, we're the polar opposite of our significant other, right? I mean, I know me and my wife, we're like opposite ends of the great polarity in virtually every context, right?
Hmm.
And where that used to drive me nuts, still does at times. It, I've also found the beauty, the gifts in it, but I also know that if because of that, if I come to her with an idea, something I want to do, there's
Yep.
a 99.9% chance that she's gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's not gonna happen. But if I
Uh,
start to exercise and practice it, she will A, support it, and B, many cases over time, she will start to do it too. Because she'll
yeah.
start to see the value because she sees me transforming and putting in
Hmm.
that effort. And
Yep.
I think there's a lot of power in that. There's got to be that person that's willing to put that the best practice forward and take the risk because it's very rare that you're both going to be in alignment
Yeah.
from decision point.
Mm. The risk thing. I don't know why that just triggered me. One of you's got to be willing to take the risk.
Yeah,
And it's interesting because it really is a paradox, right? Like, especially with the people that you care deeply about, whether it's in business or in your personal life, like there's a level of esteem in those relationships where it's like, and dude, I'm on the record with with my wife. If she, un, God, unfortunately, as it would be for me, if she goes before me, like, I'm going to be single for the duration because I don't want to get to know anybody to the depth that I know her now.
yeah,
You know what I
terrifying.
mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, that dynamic exists in a lot of different scenarios in our lives. And at the same time, it is an unrealistic expectation to say that you're going to grow together at the same rate. I think it's more important that you're both growing at all,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's, the reality is this leapfrogging effect.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
one of you is going to be where you are integrating the growth that just occurred, while, because the priority of effort is going to be different.
yeah.
I'm trying to grow this business, she's trying to grow in motherhood. Like, those aren't the same priority.
Mm-hmm.
you know so I love the idea, though, that one of you needs to be willing to take the risk. Like, this is the new thing. This is the updated, upgraded agreement that I desire and require. Somebody has to say that shit out loud.
And be
Otherwise,
willing to let it change too. Like,
yeah.
because that's another thing. You could have made an agreement a year ago, but then now after living that agreement might be great for one party, but all of a sudden the other one's
Mhm.
like, shit, this is not, I'm not happy or comfortable here anymore. And the husband and wife are a great example. Like, and this is
Mhm.
a really interesting one that for the audience to think about is like, in any relationship, there's always going to be the one person that's more influential.
Mhm.
I mean, think about it. In any relationship, there's always one more person that's more influential. The other one is more likely to go along with the thing or whatever that is suggested. Not to
Yep.
say there's no input in it, but there's almost one
Mhm.
person that's more dominant.
Yep.
Now, take an intimate relationship as an example, and you have a husband and wife, and say in the beginning, first 2, 3, 5 years of their relationship, they're both working, they're both contributing to the house, they make decision to buy the house together, they pick and furnish it, they divide their responsibilities, everything's like quote unquote even. But
Mhm.
then what happens when you decide to have kids? And what happens when those kids lead a decision for either husband or wife to stay home? Now all of a sudden there's an unspoken imbalance in power.
Mhm.
Because if that husband or wife is all of a sudden the one that's the breadwinner, while
Yep.
the husband or wife is now staying at home with the kids, there tends to be a default to them being more fearful and concerned over any of the financial decisions and also controlling of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And now that person that's staying home is now more socially isolated. They may or may not have as much contact with the outside world. There's a lot of things that can start to happen and transform. And if we aren't aware of those imbalances in power, so to speak,
Yep.
consciously, and having those conversations around that, and also being willing to have a conversation that says, okay, I agreed to stay home, but now I'm not happy. I want to find
Right.
a way to get back to work and
Uh-huh.
recreate a new agreement where you guys come together. Then it also leads to a whole another subset of problems. I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a dynamic conversation,
It
but
it
most of it comes
is.
back to conversations. You know?
But it's so funny because like when you're talking about updating and upgrading these agreements, like 8 months ago, my wife and I decided that she was going to uh, step away from the business and focus on being mom,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
A very critical and important decision,
mm-hmm. Yeah, to
right?
say the least. Yeah.
And at the same time, my wife is very type A. She's always been a contributor, right? It's actually in in the I took it from Tony Robbins, but contribution is one of her top six
Mm-hmm,
on her value tree,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And when we made this decision, we made this agreement, this is going to happen, here we go, right? What showed up was she needed to shift what contribution means now in this new agreement,
100%.
right?
Because why she
Because
didn't find value in herself, right?
there's friction because
Yeah,
like, oh, I used to contribute this way.
yeah.
How do I get that same satisfaction or find that same value in this new agreement, right? So there's, to your point, there's a lot of introspection that needs to happen as you move through this evolution.
Yeah.
Because if you become of the habit of externalizing or blaming, or it's because of XYZ outside of me, you're only setting yourself up for failure.
Yep. 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting too, because like, that agreement could have lasted 7 days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, nope, we need to have another conversation. Fuck this. No
Yeah.
thanks. Like, oh shit, I have time on my hands I didn't know existed. Don't like it. Or it's like, you know what? This is the bee's knees. Mycal, I'm never going back to work. Like either of those things could have happened.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you need to be willing to not hold the old agreement against each other.
Yeah.
Because to
Really
your point, because
important.
like it could and most likely will, at least looking at it from the outside looking in, as we experience each other, seem really fucking lopsided. Like, wow, you got the lion's end of that deal, and I'm left holding the bag.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, yes, I know we made that agreement because that's what you wanted. Okay, how do we upgrade that, maintain that, but at the same time, I need a little more support this way. And you got to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
You
Dude,
know?
sometimes that agreement was not even made out of want, it's made out of necessity. Like,
Mhm.
you know, to just use that as an example. I mean, a lot of people can't afford, unfortunately, to put their kids in childcare.
Mhm.
And like, if you can't, then, by necessity, you may have to become a stay at home mom or stay at home dad. And if you are conscious of, to your point, reframing your values, like
Mhm.
what it means to contribute,
Yep.
then you're always going to be coming from a place of lack and you're always going to feel unfulfilled. So,
Mhm.
it's like Tony talks about. We always have two choices. You can either change your environment or change the way that you look at your environment.
Mhm.
That's it. Either change your environment or you change the way that you look at it. You always have those two choices at minimum. What
Right.
does this mean to you?
Mhm.
And at that point, then you have to make that decision. What is right? But if we get so stuck on the agreement that we made X years ago, then you're also setting yourself up for failure because people change, needs change, and particularly as you
Mhm.
put a spotlight on the new thing that you're doing, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
So again, that's the uh uh how they react or respond is okay. But one of you needs to be willing to take that risk,
Yeah.
right? And that also is an agreement
Hmm.
in your relationship. Like, hey, just so we are on the same page, we have each other's permission, regardless of whether it's needed or not. We have each other's permission to take that risk and it not be held against us,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
the again, this feels so foreign to what's normal. That's why it feels hard. But nothing we've said, just as it hits your ears, sounds overly complicated or super hard. You know, it's really not difficult at all.
As
But
long as you're aware of the pattern,
right,
because
the
we're going to
ego.
default. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. The default, right?
Hmm.
Whenever, and we talk about this a lot in the coaching of our clients. Like, it's not a matter of if, but when you regress to what's familiar and what's comfortable, let's redefine what progress actually looks like.
Hmm.
Because when you fall off the wagon, not if, but when, did you get back up faster?
Hmm.
Did you not fall as hard? The feedback, what we're talking about is making that feedback loop tighter so that you can stay closer to center as consistently as possible.
Hmm.
That's progress. We're not waiting to cross the threshold or the finish line or accomplish said goal and be there forever and look at the world from that mountaintop. That's not progress. That's a result. And that is awesome in its own right. But
Yeah.
the real celebration that keeps us consistent and adherent to the service of our highest and best self is paying attention to that feedback loop. Like, oh shit, man, yeah, dude, life got in the way and I haven't worked out. Well, cool, man, get back in the gym tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
When would now be a good time?
yeah, I was on the road all day and I had to grab something from the Circle K that wasn't on the meal plan. Like, okay, start over tomorrow.
Hmm.
Like, make your next meal a better one. Like, that's progress. But I think let me know try this on to see how it fits. When we hold ourselves to this expectation of the ideal, we set ourselves up for failure.
Yeah, you set an impossible standard.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's fucking perfect. That's the simple reality. You're going to make mistakes every single day. We just want to make a better quality mistake. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so here's two frames. I'll give you the Tony frame and the Dean frame. Dean
Okay.
always called it the success loop, right? He's like, nothing is linear, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
our trajectory is not this perfectly straight upward line. It's we go up and then shit hits the fan and you go down and then you go backwards. And then actually, if you're doing things properly and you've maintained that awareness, you'll springboard back up to another level. And then you're going to run into a new devil and things are going to drop back down, probably go backwards a little bit. And then we're on these continually, hopefully, upward spirals. Now, I love that idea because it paints the picture that it ain't perfect. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like we just grow and things get better and we make more money and our relationships get better. It's like you're going to run into problems. Problems
Mm-hmm.
are a sign of life. The only
Yep.
people that don't have problems are in the graveyard. And then alternately, Tony talked about it like a thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like our current level of living, our income, the house that we're in, the impact that we make, our kids, this is our current 70 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you start to experience success. But when and maybe the temperature goes up to 74, 75 degrees, and you're like, this is freaking awesome. But some part of your unconscious mind, if it has these old belief systems, these old values that don't believe that you're worthy, that don't believe that you're capable, will self sabotage you back to that 70-degree number.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, if we're not conscientious about leveling that standard, so instead of going from 75 to 70 and thinking back to this success loop, maybe we drop down to 72. Things aren't quite as bad. You didn't lose quite as much money. Your relationship isn't as defunct. And we're constantly growing based on a new foundation. All of a sudden, you're at 110 degrees living here in the Arizona desert, and things are spectacular, right? But you got new level, new problems too. So I mean, they never go away. I think that's that real need to surrender and detach from the fact that no matter what, you're gonna have problems in life. Best thing we can do is put a smile on our face, recognize them, and honor the fact that they are there to help us achieve our next level, and they're being presented to us by design.
How do you how has Zac fallen in love with the process? Do you just, because of the rooms that you've been in, you're like, there's no way I'm the, like, have you reconciled for yourself that there's no way you're the only one who's been through this shit? Or is it, I watched so-and-so go through this, so I have proof that there's life on the other side? Like, how do you embrace this iterative process that is life and our own personal evolution?
You know, I don't know why this quote just popped into my head because it doesn't seem like it's perfectly in alignment, but you know, I'm an external processor, so somehow I'm going to talk my way to my point. But like,
Yep.
you know, it's like you can't get into a fight with somebody who's not willing to get in the ring with you, right? And for me, what that means, and as it pertains to like growth and how you navigate all these different scenarios, is you're constantly fighting the ego. You're constantly fighting the demoralizing voices that tell you you're not enough, or you're incapable, or you're not smart enough, or you don't have the resource. Like that shit never goes away, regardless of what level you're at. And I think that was one of the most important things I ever heard, was to learn that even men and women that have achieved these freaking unbelievable things are still battling those same conversations. So what you begin to realize is they're transient.
Yeah.
But the voices get quieter the more we practice listening to them. And I think that's the thing, is we resist stuff so often, but what you resist persists. So if we can learn to let that shit go and recognize that it's just a part of the current journey, then ultimately, to your point again earlier, like you're shortening that learning window down, whereas maybe it took you a year to figure out before, maybe you can talk yourself through it now in a matter of days.
Yeah.
And reignite the next step, path, trajectory, whatever. So, you know, being aware of the fact that we all battle those conversations. None of these beliefs are new. We all are going through, everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's been through some shit. It's just different types, right?
Yep.
Like Matthew McConaughey says, like the best thing we can do when we step shit is either buy new shoes or to figure out how to wipe them off fast, right? Like clean them off. It's just, you when you first develop the fundamental understanding of the way the mind works, you gain that intellect, but then we have to put these things into practice. And that's the thing, is like we can't just be consumers, we have to be actively utilizing all the things that we learn. And I think that all this comes back to the success loop and the thermometer, and like all the conversations we've had compiled down to this one culminating moment where it's like, it's never going to be perfect. Take the time to take space for yourself, ask yourself the hard questions, have deep internal conversations, get clear on what you want, detach from the outcome, let God, the universe, whatever your belief system, guide what is next, because he will present you with what you, not necessarily what you want, but what you need.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. You know, it's when we're talking about the process of manifestation, it's just accepting the fact that what you're being presented with, it's really important that you answer the question of alignment, because what you get presented with may not look the way that you thought it would, you know, and confronted with that reality, it's like, that's not what I thought that's not how I thought this opportunity was going to be packaged. What the fuck? And instead of like dismissing it or running away from it, like ask yourself the question, is this, even though it looks kind of weird or different than I thought it would, in alignment with where I'm trying to go? And it may not be the thing, but it might be the next step that moves you towards it. But if you don't answer the question, if you don't discern for yourself whether or not it's in alignment, you might miss it completely.
There's a lot of wisdom in what you just said. This was another concept that was relatively foreign and new to me until fairly recently because, and I actually, Mycal, I know you'll relate to this too. Like you, I had 17 years in the health and wellness industry. And I don't remember what your exact tenure was, but I know it's up there, right?
Yeah, 25, dude.
Yeah, exactly, right? And for me, like the thought, I thought I was going to spend my life in that industry.
Yeah.
So when I made the decision to leave the health and wellness industry, albeit, I got to be like sharing rooms, rubbing shoulders, walking on stages with like some of my superheroes. It was an easy decision and it was the hardest decision at the same time. But it taught me something that it wasn't until, what, almost a decade later that I didn't even know would be an important morality lesson from it, which was we get so married to an idea of what we think life should look like and is going to look like that we can become blind to all the opportunities that are being presented with us. And just because I thought at one point I was going to spend my life in the fitness industry and the wellness industry doesn't mean that God doesn't have another plan.
Oh, dude.
And that was the hardest thing because I thought forever we're told as entrepreneurs, you have to have clarity on your vision and you don't stop and you got to work and fucking grind and do all this shit to get there. But the reality is sometimes that want changes.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You need to take that step back and ask yourself, okay, is it just getting hard and I'm not wanting to face that resistance? Or is this not really what I want to do or where I'm being called? And a lot of that's going to come down to faith and intuition.
Yeah.
You're presented with opportunities. Are you open to them?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, if you had asked me 25 years ago if the leadership and character development work that we do now was going to be laid upon the foundation of physical fitness, I'd have been like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Those two things those are two sole and separate initiatives, and one of the through lines of this conversation is approaching things with curiosity. It's like, oh, well, if all these people of influence are coming to me to solve this fitness problem, and I've deduced that their fitness or lack thereof is the result of things that they're not dealing with in leadership and character development. Well, if we solve that problem or begin to solve it, well, then this will just fall in line. And just the act of seeing if that was true created what we do at Next Level now. And that is so far from simply helping people sweat with a smile. You know what I mean?
What a gift. Yeah, 100%. And it's so true because I started to identify those same patterns. It was the whole thing that took me down the behavioral psychology rabbit hole. I'm like, fitness is not the problem. Like, it's all the shit that they're doing or not doing when they're not here with me, when they don't have absolute 100% accountability. That's the problem, and that starts up here. It's leadership of yourself. And if you can't lead yourself, how effective are you going to be at leading others?
Right.
Yeah, I love that. No, I mean, and I know you wholeheartedly agree with this. To me, I mean, I love the direction you've taken it, and I also know that for you and me alike, fitness is also our foundation to our ability to show up at our full potential in life, to experience everything we want to experience. I don't want to say I'm in so much pain that I can't get out of bed today and go hit the trail or skis or boat or whatever I want to do. I'm like, I have every excuse not to. I had back surgery when I was 20 years old. I'm legally disabled on paper. Nobody would know that looking at me. And it's because of the way I take care of myself. So I mean, it used to make me fucking mad. Well, it still does on some levels. It used to make me mad when people are like, "Oh no, you just love fitness." I'm like, "No, dude, my brain just like he was like, fuck, I don't want to do this today." But I'm like, I don't negotiate with myself. I
Right.
go put my shorts on, I go put my shoes on, and
Mhm.
I put my ass on the pavement, and I go do something. Maybe it's not going to be my best workout, but I
Right.
did a workout.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Man, I love you. I'm so happy that we run in the same circles now.
Yeah.
Where can the audience go and experience Zac Palmer?
Instagrams where you get like awesome, really great content from us. So find me at the Zac Palmer, TheZacPalmer. It's also on the scroll, so you guys can find that there. So Instagram, Zac Palmer. Same thing. I mean, everything is the Zac Palmer. So my LinkedIn, my website, www.thezacpalmer.com, Instagram, YouTube. Find us there. Check out our podcast. We got the Perpetual Growth Podcast, which Mycal's on. So we'll get that episode published soon.
Let's go. Let's go. Appreciate you, brother. For everybody out there listening, remember it begins with integrity, courage, and ownership. Newly launched is the Next Level Alignment Village, where you can come and consume everybody that operates at this frequency. And I'm so excited for the launch. By the time this episode drops, it'll be in full swing. The link will be in the show notes, and come on in. We invite you with open arms. Until next time, progress always.